Your shades and we'll get going. Thank you, Patrick. Okay. Uh, Proud of the way our guys played on Saturday night. It was another strong performance, offense. 3 weeks in a row or 3 games in a row where we've been very productive. Defense was very good. Just kind of the same things I said at the press conference after the game. The post-game press conference is, really just repeating myself with that. We had a couple breakdowns in special teams, which is concerning, and we got to get those fixed. But otherwise, a good game. The atmosphere was great. Shout out to our fans for just making it a great home field advantage for us. And the Muss, of course, the Muss was there in full force. So a lot of good things on Saturday night, and now it's on to the next one. You got UCLA at UCLA on Friday night, short week, and so we've got to accelerate our preparation, which we have a plan in place and that we adhere to, and so we'll jump into that this week. And they're coming off a couple wins. They got momentum right now. Cal and Arizona, they've got 2 wins in a row and scored 30-plus points in each of those games, and so we got to go down and play well again. I mean, that's just the nature of the conference. You got to play well week in and week out, and right now, like I said, we got a little momentum on our side. So, questions?
After watching the film, could you guys say that was the best game of Tyler Huntley's career?
Probably so. Yeah, I mean, he's had some really good games for us, but if you were to just narrow it down to the best game, his passer rating was outstanding. It was, in the 200s, which is, as good as you're going to find. And so, took care of the football, ran the ball effectively, got out of some really tough spots in the pocket a couple times. And so, I think we'd have to concur with that, agree with that.
Your teams have always been really good against the on-run defense, but you lead the country so far. What's been so different about this defensive linebackers than maybe years past?
Well, we have had some stout run defenses in the past, and that's always the starting point on defense for us, is to take away the run. But I think first of all, personnel. We've got outstanding personnel. We've had good personnel in the past though as well, and we've put up some good numbers. But this group really seems to be finding their just their place. Each position, each guy in each position has really done a good job. We haven't had a spot that's been concerning or not getting play out of one spot and need doing. We just there's always room for improvement, but everybody's playing very well across the board on defense, but particularly in the front seven, and that's front six now. It used to be the front seven, but front six is playing very well.
It's almost impossible to play your best football every week in this conference, but what have you learned in recent years about trying to maintain some consistency?
Well, staying on even keel, not avoiding the, being too high, too low, just being consistent in your approach. And this group has been great about that. Their preparation week in and week out is very consistent and very, it's just been no peaks and valleys, and they come out and they take care of their business on the practice field, in the meeting room, and that's really where it starts, and they've done a great job of that.
Looks like the Bruins had a starting quarterback go out, and then they put in a quarterback who started at the beginning of the season. Can you just talk about how different one is to the other depending on who plays?
Yeah, well, the Spate is the guy that we saw at Michigan several years back, and so we've seen him. He's a big kid, 6'6", more of a pocket guy, and the freshman is more of a dual threat. And a Chip Kelly offense traditionally and typically is a run-first offense, and that's where they really had it going at Oregon when they were just running the ball up and down the field. I think they were over 300 yards a game one year or close to it. They were really good running the football, and so. But we don't know who's going to play. At least I haven't heard. Maybe you know more than I do right now. So we'll prepare for both of them. But you got one is more of a dual threat, and one is more of a in the pocket guy.
We've been asking you for years about the passing game. You've talked about having to fix the throw game, and now the numbers have been off the charts here for 3 weeks. What's fixed it in your mind?
Well, probably the same things I said the last few weeks as far as what's been the catalyst for the offense in general. It starts up front. You know, the offensive line has been very good in protection the last several weeks. The receivers, the drops, you know, seem to have they're you know much fewer, and you know Tyler's been very good with his reads and being patient in the pocket. And so I think you just combine all three of those. Plus maybe as much as anything is the run game. When people have to respect the run game, usually the throw game, is a benefactor of that. But in years past, we've had a strong run game and haven't been able to get the ball thrown with the efficiency we needed. So that's not always the case, but that certainly has helped this year. And Zach did a great job on Saturday night when he had 25 carries for another 100-plus outing. So when they have to pack the box to to try to stop the run game, that opens up options in the throw. Then also, we're getting very proficient in the RPO game. That's something, a strength of Tyler's. The RPO is one of the things he does very well, and that is a relatively new concept. And so that's something that we have got a lot of mileage out of.
Your defense this season putting up some of the top numbers in college football this season. Do you guys feel like you would get more recognition nationally if you were in a different conference, or do you not pay attention to any of that?
Don't care. Don't pay attention to that. That's just kind of something you only control your controllables, and we don't put a whole lot of stock in that. And you're only as good as your last performance. So we're just barely over the halfway point. So there's still a lot of ball to play and a lot of challenges ahead. So we're just like I said, try to be consistent in our approach, and just continue. There's things we're doing well, but there's a lot of things we can improve on. And that's the focus is improving on our shortcomings.
You said Max Tupai was a bit of a surprise. What's been so different now that he's played live action versus maybe in fall camp or anything else?
Great question. The light switch has just come on, and that sometimes there's really no explanation for that. A guy will be in your program and not make a lot of noise or do much, and then all of a sudden something clicks, and that's what's happened with Max. And he is turning into the player that, the exact player that we hoped he would be when we recruited him, and that's been a huge plus for us because, as I've said before, we were a little bit thin on depth at D end, and that having him play at the level he's playing at is. Made a ton of difference, especially with Mika Tafua. He was out for a period of time, and so he picked up the slack. Not only picked up the slack, but just exceeded everybody's expectations.
How closely does UCLA's offensive scheme resemble what you saw in the Oregon days with Chip?
Quite a bit, and he's just getting it implemented and getting it started, and I'm sure it'll continue to get closer and closer to what he wants it to be, but the basics are there. He plays with tempo. The formations are very similar, and the run schemes are very similar. So,
Coach, you seem to have utilized your tight ends a little more this year, and you got some young freshmen in there. Can you just talk about those guys, how well they've been doing, and why maybe you're using that a little bit more?
Yeah, they've been a good weapon for us, and we've got 4 that really play the bulk of the snaps, and Jake Jackson is converted linebacker and really has adapted to that position very well and had a touchdown reception Saturday night. The 2 freshmen, Cole Fotheringham and Brant Keithy, have been big pluses, and Brant is a tough matchup. He's not, he needs to get bigger. He's only about 220, 225, but so he's he needs to put on some weight to continue to be more effective in the run game. But he's a tough matchup for a linebacker, and it's tough to cover. And he has a good feel for running routes, and he's got exceptional hands, so he's been a big plus. Then Connor Haller is the other guy that has taken some reps, and not as many as the other 3, but it's a big plus for us. In the tight end, the more weapons you have, the better off you are, and the tight ends have really stepped up and become very reliable.
I realize it's good to be first in the Pac-12 in a lot of things, but in defense, first in rushing defense, pass efficiency defense, and total defense. Is there any of those you put a little more stock in than the others? Or what's a better barometer for defense?
As I've said, we always start with the run defense, and if you can defend the run and run the ball on offense, you're always going to have a chance. And so that's our starting point on defense. So I guess that might make it the most important, but everything's important. The turnover margin, being able to take the ball away, sacking the quarterback, those havoc plays. That's something that's very important that doesn't usually get as much attention as the other more common stats, but it's all good, and the guys are functioning well, and Coach Scally and that defensive staff have got them in a good spot right now.
I think the last 3 games we've gone roughly 300 passing, 200 running. It seems like the perfect balance. Are you happy with the way that
Very
the
much
offense is
so.
being distributed?
Yeah, the balance of the offense has been, the blueprint that we've had the last several weeks has been perfect. And so, we hope that we can continue. I shouldn't say perfect. It's been very good, very productive. And so that's, in our estimation, when we're at our best, that's who we are. What you've seen the last 3 games. And some weeks it's not going to be like that every week. Some weeks you have to throw more, some weeks you have to run more. But the last few weeks have been very, very balanced and very ideal as far as what we're looking for.
We've seen now Chase Hansen leads the Pac-12 in tackles for loss. And over the last 3 weeks overall, how would you say your linebackers have played?
Outstanding. Those 2 guys are really not only from a production standpoint on the field, but from a leadership standpoint, making sure everything's going like it's supposed to be going in everything. Whether it's in the weight room, in the meeting room, on the field, whatever. Those 2 guys have been outstanding for us, and they're both very productive. I mean, they're both making a bunch of plays. And Chase, had an outstanding game last week. That interception was as athletic a play as you'll see a linebacker make. So those guys have been invaluable to our success so far.
When you have a player leave your program, how much does it cause you to reevaluate the individual and then the general process of recruiting and then bringing that player, whoever commits and signs, into your program?
Well, you're always evaluating everything, and you hate to see players leave, but you just try to move on, and as far as guys coming into the program, what was your question about guys coming in? Just
generally, does it cause you to reevaluate everything?
No, not reevaluate everything, but you want to make sure if you ever think you got all the answers and you don't need to keep trying to get better, then you're going to get you're going to be in a bad spot. And so we're always trying to make the culture of this program is very important to us, and I think we've developed a pretty good culture here, and our guys seem to be very close knit and get along with each other. But in this day and age of football, to say that you're not going to have anybody leave the program ever, that's unrealistic. And so you just got to focus on the players that you have in the program, and anybody that chooses to move on, we wish them well and hope it works out.
Kind of piggybacking off that, Kyle, do you think coaches are having a harder time keeping guys around with the amount of transfers going on around the country in recent years? Because when you get a kid, you're doing backflips because you get him to sign the NLI, send it in. But now it seems like with the amount of kids moving on, it might be a little different after you get them in-house.
Yeah, probably a little more difficult than in years past. And with the new rule, I didn't think that was going to make things dramatically different. And I don't think it has, because most of the time, if an athlete's not thinking he's got a better opportunity somewhere else, you're not going to hold him back. But it is, and also recruiting them. You got the other problem with the early departures to the NFL. That's another issue that you have to deal with. And so, yeah, you recruit them one time to get them in your program, and you got to keep recruiting them while they're with you and try to hang on to them. But some positions are more prone to transfer than others. That's just the nature of the beast.
We'll keep the topic going. Kyle, I know you talked about it in general terms, but specifically, anything to add about Jack Tuttle's decision to leave the program?
No, not right now. Like I said in the release, we just wish him the best, and we're just focusing on the task that we have at hand, which right now is UCLA.
To win like that in front of a crowd like that at a time of year when kids are doing on-campus visits, what is the reaction? What is the feedback you get from high school kids who see that in person or on TV?
Well, obviously very positive. I mean, it's it's great to be able to have on a national stage or a stage of some platform that a lot of people are watching, that when you play well and the kids see that. Even on TV, it projects the crowd and the atmosphere, but to be there is even that much better. And we had a fairly substantial recruiting weekend this past weekend, and so it's very positive, and I think it was had a big impact. So, but we'll see what happens.
It's rare to see a team get after Mitch the way USC did over the weekend. What specifically were they able to do scheme-wise? Because Mitch generally isn't under heat that often, but he seemed like he was pretty much every time he was back there.
Yeah, they had a good plan, and we knew coming in they had been fairly aggressive with their punt return unit. It's they do a great job typically with special teams. John Baxter, who's their coordinator, he's a well-known special teams guy in the country, And the two issues we had really two situations that were breakdowns. One that was a near block, and we didn't block it correctly. We had a miscount with the protection, and so we had a guy turn loose that shouldn't have been. And then in the one that actually they got a hand on, we had a snap that pulled him off his spot, and he scrambled to try to get back to his launch point. When they're bringing max heat and the snap's not where it needs to be, and you get the timing disrupted a little bit, that's usually not a good thing, and it wasn't Saturday night.
Kyle, could you talk about, you've got 4 Pac-12 games left, 3 on the road, and then you got the Ducks obviously coming in. Can you just talk about the challenge you have ahead of you?
We have UCLA, and that's our challenge right now, and you can't look past anyone in this conference, and our guys do a great job of not doing that. And so I really couldn't even tell you who we play next week. That's the honest truth. And we got all our focus, all our attention, everything centered on the Bruins. Thanks, guys.